Welcome to Around the Ozarks Spotlight. Each week, we uncover the stories behind the people here in Southwest Missouri who have entrepreneurial spirit, who work to better the lives of others, or put pen to paper to write books about the stories and history of the Ozarks and its people. And I'm your host, Scott Meier. Today, we're going to explore the world of marketing and advertising with Diana Tyndall. Diana, the owner of Modern Day Marketing. Hello, Diana. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. We talk little bit about on this show the entrepreneurial spirit, and yours actually was a bit of spirit in that you were the head of marketing for the Parks Department for a long time. And one day, threw your hands in the air, it seems, and said, "You know what? I want to go into business for myself." Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I've got to give amazing credit to Parks, who um, I learned so much by working for Parks, and it really felt like I was an ad agency in a way,
Hmm.
because I was working on marketing so many different properties that the Parks had. So, from collaborating with the zoo, with Joey Powell, and the golf courses to the fitness programs and so many things. I got to give credit to Parks to allow me to do what I'm doing today,
Hmm.
and especially Bob Belote and Jenny Edwards. And I'm just so grateful for them being able to allow me to do the fun things, right? Or at least I call it fun now. But it was during COVID that really sparked that. Like, is it too crazy to want something more? And during COVID, I had the privilege of being able to pick up my kids in car line. And
Hmm.
our hours were a little bit more flexible. And once I did that, I realized I was like, I want to be a car line mom, and I want to figure out how to make this work
Sure.
um, at this season in my life. And so from there, I met with, I think it's so important to have mentors in your life.
Hmm.
And I had a strong mentor in my life that had a very similar ad agency. And she said, we were talking over a glass of wine one night, and she's like, you can do this. You could totally do this. And I'm
Hmm.
like, wait, what? You're not talking about someone over there. You're talking about me. And I think I've always kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit, but I hadn't
Hmm.
really had that opportunity or had that developed or seen in me, and or I hadn't seen it in myself. And so
Hmm.
it was truly during that I had the opportunity to do a side hustle while I was still working at Parks, and I only had one or two clients at the time, and I was burning the candle at both ends. And it was in 2021 that I finally, at the end of that year, that I resigned on great terms with the Parks Department
Hmm.
because I just couldn't keep up the pace. I was having some growth and working with some really great owners, but there was only so much work I could do in the evening hours and on the weekends, and just taking that time away from my family, which was the whole reason why I wanted to do it.
Sure.
And I was running out of the vacation time and all the time with the city. So again, I'm just so gracious and grateful, and it was truly a God ordained time. And I read
Hmm.
a lot of business books. I got to give a shout out that he probably doesn't, I don't know if he tunes into this or not, but I hope he does. But Sean Askinosie, I read his book that was
Hmm.
Meaningful Work, and Dave Ramsey, Entree Leadership book. And it was really through reading those books that I was like, I'm doing this. Like, uh, if I may fail or fly, come hell or high water, I'm going to do this. So
Well,
that's how I got
from
started.
our training that we've had in a company like Sandler, that David Sandler talks all the time about failing to win, or failing to learn. You have to fail before you
Fail
can
forward.
actually fail forward. And obviously, no one wants to see you fail, but entrepreneurs all the time sometimes run into walls because it happens. But at the same
Yeah.
time, they keep going. If you're a true entrepreneur, don't want to work for somebody anymore other than
Yeah.
yourself, then obviously, right, you want to make it work, and you're going to put the
Hmm.
time and effort in. Now, let's talk about you a little bit, because you're not from Southwest Missouri. You
No,
were born and raised where?
nowhere. That's my short answer. My dad was in the Air Force, and so I
Hmm.
was an Air Force brat. I moved around my whole life. I had I've lost count of how many elementary schools and junior highs, but I had 3 high schools in Washington State, Virginia, and Texas.
Hmm.
And I loved moving around. It's part of who made me who I am today. And we
Sure.
got to see all over the country. I saw where I wanted to live and where I didn't ever want to visit or vacation ever
Right.
again. Nebraska and Illinois, sorry. But it was really neat to be able to have that experience and just meet a lot of different people. It was a very diverse culture in Virginia and
Mhm.
even in Washington State. I mean, I was probably considered a minority there. So it's very interesting to see and experience a lot of different walks of life. But ended up in Southwest Missouri to go to college here at Evangel University, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. At the time, I thought I wanted to be a nurse, and that ended very quickly on my first day of orientation. And they
Something
told me I
about
had
blood? Is that the problem? Or
no. My dad's a doctor, so I grew up all around like talking about blood and guts at the dinner table. But no, it was the fact that I didn't know you. This was me at the time. I
sure.
didn't know you had to have a BS, and I'm like, oh yeah, math and science. I don't know about that. And
Yeah.
so my dad was the one who really was a great influence. I mean, both my parents are amazing, and they're part of who made me, into the great person I am today. And um, yeah, my dad said on the phone as soon as I was just in tears, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. It's over. Like, and he's like, have you thought about communications? And I said, what's communications?
Dads
So,
are wise. Have you learned that now that
oh, they are
dads are
so
wise? They are
wise.
wise. Yeah.
And so
Especially
that was
around
the
daughters.
yes.
But
So that was the beginning of studying and getting my communications degree with an emphasis
mhm.
in broadcasting, and I got exposed to a lot of different things within that field. So I'm super grateful for that education.
My guest today on Around the Ozarks Spotlight is Diana Tyndall. Diana is the owner of a brand new advertising firm here in Springfield called Modern Day Marketing. Where'd the name come from?
Oh my goodness. A friend of mine. I had been brainstorming. Her name's Kristen Bergman. You may or may not have known her.
Hmm.
She has an ad agency as well. It's more of a PR firm. And it was just, she's like, why don't you just call it like modern day? Like you're taking a modern spin on this marketing. And there's a lot of firms that will put only digital advertising on the forefront. But,
Hmm.
I had such a vast background, as you know, in radio. I was in radio for a number of years, and like 12. and
Right.
and
Sure.
then I saw the power of a lot of different mediums working when I was with the parks department. So from billboards to television to print, I mean, all of them have their place.
Hmm.
And I just take a modern approach on it, and I still believe in the power of broadcast messaging and getting your message out there and brainwashing the consumers in a tasteful way, obviously. But
Hmm. Obviously.
that's something I was just really passionate about, and I wanted, I don't know, it to stand out. And I'm friends with a lot of the other ad agencies in town, and I wanted just something a little different. So
It's interesting. The you and I both started our broadcast careers with the same company, Midwest Family. Mine a million years ago, yours a decade and a half ago. But internally, those companies were really built primarily on working directly with customers, not through ad
mhm.
agencies. And I thought it was interesting when I first came to the market that there was a lot of mixed emotions, let's say, in the building about working with ad agencies. Not sure they really understood how an agency can be, your partner. They're not an
Mhm.
adversary. Can you speak to that a little bit now that you're on the other side of the fence? You were in
Oh,
sales for a long time and working with a lot of direct clients, and maybe
yeah.
you worked with an agency or two, but now you're the agency. So let's speak to that a little bit.
Well, bottom line, I mean, I think anytime you're working with a agency, their goal is to get what the client wants. And when you're the account executive on it, you may not realize you don't know all the information that maybe the client has shared with that agency. So you're
Mhm.
getting a piece of that information. And I realize that now. And again, a lot of it was learned along the way, but I had I had some bad experiences with some agencies when I was selling media. And when I started the business, I said, I never want to feel how that felt, right? Like on
Hmm.
being on the other side. So if I work with any kind of rep, I really try to be upfront and honest. And I say, look, this is really what I need. This is what I'm looking for. We're looking at a lot of different options. I think being as open and honest as you can, there's a lot of information I can't share, but I think when it comes to trying to find the right fit for your client, being able to share as much as you can with that rep will help them to
Right.
be able to come up with the best solution for your client. And there's information I may not know. Like I know you guys do a lot with the Chiefs and are on the cusp of a lot of new things. So if it involves a Chief bus ride and I have a client who's a crazy Chiefs fan,
Hmm.
I think it's foolish for me not to offer that as an option or, um, different solutions. It may not be in the budget. It may not be a fit at the time, but I want to know the information. And I have a lot of memories of, oh, well, I can't even pitch this to this ad agency because it's a package and they just don't buy packages. They buy rating points. Right.
Right. Sure.
And so there's just I've seen both sides. I've been on the buying side from the parks department where I was buying a lot of different media, and then I've been on the sales side. And so I think there's very few people that have actually been on both sides and have an ad agency. And so I offer that experience, and I don't work with very many clients. I'm really in this space of being content right now. I'm not
Hmm.
looking to scale to have my own building or have take on a bunch of staff, because I know if I do that, that's going to be more to manage. And I just love the clients that I work with right now, and I know what their goals are, and I know we're moving the needle and we're getting them to where they want to go. And a lot of that is due to the reps and what the representatives have put together and how we've kind of come to that compromise, and it feels like a win-win. That is my goal. Is I want it to feel like a win-win where
Hmm.
the client feels like it's a win, and well, trifecta win, right? Client feels like it's a win, I feel like it's a win, and the rep feels like it's a win.
Sure. And hopefully the consumer.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
maybe it's a
we're working on just
quad
brainwashing
factor.
them, right?
That's right.
Yes, yes.
My guest on Around the Ozarks Spotlight today is Diana Tyndall. Diana, I was going to say new owner, but you're the original owner of Modern Day Marketing and Ad Agency here in Southwest Missouri. Are you dealing with any industrial accounts, or is everything you're doing right now
Mm-mm.
primarily retail?
Several service-based businesses, automotive repair and a plumbing and HVAC company, and I even have a business, a client that has a business, and they do a lot of I don't know, agricultural repairs and stuff to equipment.
Hmm.
So it's a variety of different industries. And, I think most agencies would agree that they don't work with more than one of one category. And I have that same philosophy because I think that's not personally, I based my business on integrity and doing the right thing, no matter what, even if it
Hmm.
costs me money. And there's been things where I've had to eat it. I mean, I lost money on the deal because I needed to live up to my word. And so it's about doing the right thing. And when you represent more than one industry,
Hmm.
maybe with the exception of restaurants, I think a lot of people go to a lot of different restaurants. But if you're working with two different plumbers or two different automotive repair shops, I think that the client will question, well, who are you really working for, them
Sure.
or them?
I can see that. I mean, that
Yeah.
that 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 makes sense. What do you look for from the advertising executives then to interface with you? What kinds of things? Because I think it's interesting. I used to be in marketing with Nextel, the phone company. I had a staff of 13 and a budget of $30 million, and I couldn't believe how many reps that I knew in different fields. This is before the internet was a thing, but it was primarily print and broadcast, and even some magazines and outdoor. Uh, would come and either ask me or ask somebody on my staff, why aren't you buying X that I'm selling, as opposed to asking, what is your client trying to do?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Scott, with, oh, I've got this. Everybody thinks that, and it's good to have that belief system to think that your thing is the very best thing that, like, why in the world wouldn't that client want to be on this billboard? Like, we've
Hmm.
got this billboard and it's empty right now and they should be on there. And I'm just picking on billboards just as an example, not because I've had a direct experience with that, but yeah, like I said in the beginning, there's a lot of things that rep doesn't know about that industry or that business, and I think in many cases the agency would be happy to share that if that
Hmm.
rep were to ask that, but I haven't really had that experience a lot either, Scott, in that people are wanting to sell their thing. What do you need? It's just interesting to see.
Well, let's explore that a little bit more after the break. We've just completed our first half of today's Around the Ozarks Spotlight, and we'll be back in a moment with more with Diana Tyndall and talking about modern day marketing. I'm your host, Scott Meier. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to the second half of today's Around the Ozarks Spotlight. I'm your host, Scott Meier. With me today is Diana Tyndall, housewife, mother, and owner of Modern Day Marketing, a brand new ad agency here in Southwest Missouri. In a day of not having to be bound by city limits, if you will, Modern Day Marketing has the opportunity, quite frankly, if they wanted to or you wanted to represent companies all across the country.
Yeah, but that's not my cup of tea. I
Okay.
mean, I could absolutely, Scott, but one of the things I decided early on in building my agency was it's going to be local only.
Mhm.
I really don't want to mess with regional or national accounts. There are hundreds and thousands of agencies that are really good at that. And I know Springfield. I know Springfield really well. And I know the media outlets and the options. And anytime you go into another city, or if a business is going regional, you've got to learn and understand that market. And
Mhm.
um, just for me and my scope of work of who's a good fit for me, I have that ideal client and I can tell you exactly who that is for me. But
Have you
yeah.
had to tell a client or a prospect no yet?
Yes. Yes.
What'd that sound like? What was that talk track like?
I actually had an opportunity. It was a local attorney, and he was coming up with this really neat concept where he wanted to help new businesses put together kind of a marketing uh, portal, and it was going to be potentially a series of videos. It would be
Mhm.
a lot of legwork up front and potentially an opportunity to be a partner on it. And to me, it sounded really exciting. And then I was like, hold on, Diana, take a step back. No, this is not your ideal client. My ideal clients have been in business for at least 5 years.
Mhm.
And they have a desire to grow. They probably don't have a marketing person. They probably haven't ever worked with an agency. And they're probably doing $2 million to $5 million a year or maybe more. So
Mhm.
those are my ideal clients. And there's certain categories that if the right fit were to come along, I would probably consider at least having a conversation with that. And two, even a one or two business owners. If it gets more than that, or if I'm reporting to boards, that's just a lot. So
Right.
I really kind of knew my lane of what lane I wanted to stay in. And that's where I'm at. I did tell one client yes. And it's a local restaurant.
Right.
And I'm grateful to work with her, but she was a referral from another one of my clients. And so
Sure.
I
Which is a
said,
good thing. That's a good thing.
it's
Get
great.
referrals.
And, for the time, effort, and energy it's taken, I really feel like I did the right thing in saying yes in that
Uh-huh.
opportunity, because she really did need a lot of help. And so restaurants are not on my list, but she was just one that has been a doll to work with, and it's been a joy. So,
Oh, absolutely. Before we started the recording, we were talking a little bit about faith, and you had asked me a question last week about can you talk about your faith
yeah.
on this program? And I said we have numerous times with numerous people. Certainly in Southwest Missouri, you hear more about faith than you do when I was working up in Michigan, for instance. And I think people are a little closer to the maker here,
Yeah.
from the terms of just how they treat their family and maybe their background. Why don't you talk about yours a little bit?
Oh man. So, and thank you for this
Mhm.
opportunity and this platform. I am unapologetically Christian, and my relationship with Jesus Christ has been one of the best decisions of my life. It's kept me grounded in a world that seems ever moving, and when there's been really hard challenges in life. I know you've been through cancer, Scott. I've been
Mhm.
through a hysterectomy. At what 35 years old. I'm 40 now, but to be able to go through some of those really hard things and have my faith that's unshakable and unmovable, that's absolutely been the center of who I am.
Mhm.
And not to say I'm not perfect, I make mistakes all the time. I'm still working through
Sure.
it. But early on, when I just felt like the call to start a business, and when the dominoes start falling pretty quickly after that. You got to get your EIN number, you got to get a bank, you got to get all the
Mhm.
things. And I just feel like the Lord lined up the right people at the right time for me to talk to have conversations, to encourage me, to um, just, just give me the right answers maybe in
Mhm.
me not knowing anything about anything and reading a lot of books about it and still having questions. But one of the first things I did was dedicate my business to the Lord. I was like, just like you would dedicate a child, right? You give it back to
Mhm.
God from whom we're made. May we give back to the Creator and not hold anything so tightly that He can't take it from our hands. And so I did that with the business, and God has blessed my business. I was this last year was up 200%, more than
Mhm.
200%, um, and I tithe. I give back to the church on what I make. I mean, I feel like that is what we're called to do as believers, and I'm just so grateful how God has lined up the right clients at the right time, at their right season as well, and it's been a just perfect match. All of my clients
Mhm.
along the way, and so I'm forever grateful, and I
Well,
continue to have that.
as you said, and as an entrepreneur, you're not interested in any partners, but you've got one of the best partners you could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I share my life verse? My life Bible verse is Ephesians 4:1 that says, it's Paul talking, and he's talking, I think, from a prison cell, right? So that gives
Mhm.
us a little perspective. But he says, therefore, my brothers, live a life worthy of the calling that you've received. And that verse really stuck into my head about 5 years ago. And little did I know that that would take me kind of to the point where I'm at now. And I can truly say I'm living a life worthy of the calling that God has given me. And I want to be a light to the world. I want to be a breath of fresh air to those who are struggling, being an encouragement, not
Mhm.
judgmental. Because that's God is a God of love and a God of judgment. But that's my heart, is to just help people. And whatever that looks like, if that looks like bringing them a meal or helping them plan out their whole marketing plan,
Mhm.
I love to be a piece of helping people um, move forward.
Well,
So,
let's talk for a minute about life work balance if we can. So
yeah.
you dropped the full-time job
Yeah.
and you created your own full-time job basically because it's just you, yes?
Hmm.
Or do you have
No.
okay, so it's just
It is
you.
just me, but I do have a lot of, I'll just say partners that I work with. So
Sure.
freelancers that work for me, and different partners that I'm still the face to my clients, but I work
Right.
with a lot of freelancers. I
But
didn't really want to take on staff.
you've also got a family and you've
Mhm.
got a couple of boys. What ages?
11 and 13. Yeah.
Okay, so you're in that sweet spot of everything from sports to probably music, maybe some theater. I don't know, all the things that
Yeah.
certainly young boys do these days.
Just eating
Right.
and gaming.
So how's that going? Now that you had, before we forget sometimes that it can be very comforting when you get a check, right? Every 2 weeks you get a check. You don't have to worry about the money that's in the bank. You don't have to worry about those things. The bank being the company's bank, or in this case, the Parks Department, which is a whole nother show to talk about the money they don't have in their bank. But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
another
Parks is
story,
broke. Give
right?
money to Parks, please.
But so you had that in place and you gave that up, and now you're trying to balance raising the boys,
Yeah.
your family. How many pets have you got? You got like 100 of them, right?
4.
Four pets,
Oh my
and I
goodness.
know you like to be involved in charity work too. So how do you do that?
And I'm on a
How do you
couple
make it all
boards.
work?
Yeah,
Yeah, how do you
I don't
make all
know.
that work?
Um, very carefully.
Hmm.
I for a long time, and I think it was before COVID happened, I actually listed out all the things that I was involved in. And I was going to lunch with a good friend of mine, and she doesn't work. She used to own a business, and then she sold that and kind of quit doing that. And she goes, "You need to cut your list in half." And I go, "I can't. Like, I've said yes to all these things, and come hell or high water, I'm going to do them. Like, because my
Mhm.
word is my word." And she we laugh because she had said, COVID happened. And so literally all those things on that list went went away. And I was able to carefully add them back in as it made sense. And
Mhm.
one book, I'm an avid reader. I hardly ever watch television. I read at night, and um, a book that I read, I think it's from Lisa Turkhurst, and it's called Your Best Yes. And your best yes is saying yes to the things that truly God is wanting you to say yes to.
Mhm.
And if you say yes to something that is meant to be a no, you're robbing somebody from that blessing that is maybe their yes and their best yes.
Sure.
And so I had to step back and say, I am in this season, and I want to leave some margin, and I call it white space, leaving and blocking out times in your calendar that you might not have anything on the calendar, but you just need white space. You need
Mhm.
nothing. And you probably have those times more so in your calendar now, Scott, but it's so nice to just be able to have that and just give yourself, go for a walk. Or I used to overschedule myself so much that I would find myself snapping at the kids or yelling at them
Sure.
for just the silliest things. And that's not who I want to be.
Well, the other
So,
part of it too is, you're trying to come up with campaigns for customers. That takes
mhm,
time to think about that stuff. You need
it does.
you need a clear head. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm still in the middle of not in the middle. I'm almost at the end of writing a book, and
I
never done that
didn't know
before.
that.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do it, and
Oh, wow.
once I had the
Congrats, Scott.
time, well, thank you. It's work. I'll tell you, it's funny. It's a lot of work because there's days that you want to write, and there's days that you don't. There's days that
Yeah.
you feel like you should, and all of that. So it's still work,
Yeah.
but it's a pleasure. But I was wondering, as we were talking before about you being the Air Force brat and running around the country, what would your dad say right now if he was sitting next to you?
Oh, my dad, he's told me in person, he's so proud of me. He never had that growing up. And it's not till your adult years sometimes that you realize, like, wow, and I don't want to get all emotional, but I am
Emotion's
truly
good.
I am truly so proud of my dad and my daddy.
Mhm.
I'm the oldest of three kids, and my dad came from a very different home than I grew up in. And so the work that it took my dad to not be like how his dad was,
Mhm.
his dad never told him he was proud of him. His dad never gave him accolades. He was a doctor colonel. I mean, and
Mhm.
he eventually retired from the military, but he has been, I mean, working his whole life not for his dad's attaboy, but my grandfather, his dad finally passed away a couple years ago, but
Mhm.
I'm just so grateful to have such supporting parents, and my mom, and I'm just so blessed. I have a
Now,
great family unit. Yeah.
no, that's good to hear, and I'm sure your family appreciates you too.
All that
Sometimes maybe
moving
they don't.
around. Yeah, all that moving around really forced us to just be like glue. I mean, when we would move somewhere, we didn't know anybody, and so we really just stuck like glue. And my all of my siblings, we're all still very close, even though maybe growing up we weren't super, like my brother and I, there's about, I don't know, a 10-year age difference. And so I left the house, and he was like 11 or so. And
Yeah.
no, that's getting it wrong. Anyways, we were probably about 8 years. I'm terrible with numbers
Mhm.
and age and dates. But he and I are very close now. So can we
Oh,
go
that's
back
cool.
to work-life balance? I
You
wanted
know,
to
I
share
I I
something
would
really quick.
like to, but, you've
We're
done
running
such a
out of
great
time.
job. Yes, we are. You've
Okay.
done a great job of
Okay.
answering the questions and even coming up and creating some more. In the last 30 seconds we have, why don't you tell folks how they get a hold of Modern Day Marketing?
Oh, sure. You can go to my website, moderndaymarketingllc.com, and there's a fillable form if you want to get in touch. But my
Congrat
life hack, my quick hack
Yeah.
is set your timer. Set your timer. You can accomplish so many things if you just set your timer. So that's one little hack.
That's good. So we left them with set your timer. I want to thank my guest today, Diana Tyndall, the owner of Modern Day Marketing, for her time on Around the Ozarks Spotlight. Also, my producer, Taylor Worley and Jay Stevens, as well as all of you for joining us. If you happen to miss any or a part of today's program, always can find it on MidwestFamilySpringfield.com or the new website for AroundTheOzarks.com or the new Around the Ozarks app, which is available on Apple, and I'm not an Android guy, so I guess wherever you go to get an Android app, you can get that there as well. Just scroll the page on each of those websites, and you can find this podcast as well as all the others this year. My name's Scott Meier, and remember, every day is a gift. Enjoy life. Have a great day. Thanks, Diana.
You're welcome.